Okay, hello everyone. Good day and welcome to WIF Academy. We understand that exams can be a super stressful time of the year, especially now with most of term one being online this academic year. And so we've created this event so that we can help as much as possible. Please be aware that this call is being recorded. So now I'd like to hand it over to the WIF coordinator team for this academic year, Nirmit, Anya, and Mikhail, to kick off the event.
Thank you, Arzu. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and a very warm welcome from the WIF coordinator team to all our student members for the very first event of the year, WIF Academy. My name is Nirmit Dalmia, and I'm the coordinator at WARIC India Forum. As the exam season is just a stone throw away, we at WIF are aware how stressful this period can be. To ease this period, we have decided to bring back a much needed and helpful careers team event, the WIF Academy. I would just like to say a big thank you to all those who have taken out time out of their hectic schedules to be here today. Our executive team has spent countless weeks working on this event just so that the audience can have the opportunity to hear from an experienced seniors who have been there and done that. I'm sure the audience is eagerly waiting to hear from our panel of stellar students and graduates who we very warmly welcome back to university and at WIF. Let us now move on to the proceedings of this event, which will be led by our very own careers team. We would like to proudly introduce our careers team to you, Sneh Mathur and Krish Dhruv as the team heads, Harini Desai as a team member, and Arzu Bariana as a careers advisor. On to the careers team now.
Thank you so much, Nirmit. Hello, everybody again. I'm Arzu Bariana, the careers team advisor. And this year we have, as Nirmit said, Sneh Mathur and Krish Dhruv as the co-heads and Harini Desai as our team member, who will now move on and introduce themselves. Over to Sneh.
Hi everyone, my name is Sneh Mathur and I am the co-head of careers at WARIC India Forum. Over the coming year, we hope to host such events where we help you either prepare for exams or help you with applying to different internships. And through WIF Academy, we hope that you guys feel less stressed for exams, as we have a lot of experienced panelists who have scored either a 2-1 or higher in their respective exams, and they're very familiar with the structure of these. So hope you all gain some good advice and some good tips from these sessions.
Can we have Krish and Harini also give us just brief introductions, please?
Hi guys, I'm Harini Desai and I'm a first year accounting and finance student at WARIC, obviously. And this year I'm the careers team member, and we hope that this year we're able to cater to all your career interests and we're able to give you whatever you need to be able to succeed.
Okay, moving on, Harini and I are going to be hosting this session. So I hope we can sit back and watch your worries about exams fade away. Today, we're here to cater to one of the most central parts of your university experience, academics and careers. This year, not only are we going to be helping you network with firms, but also bringing you exclusive tips from our alumni network. WIF Careers will be providing special advice with a South Asian international perspective in a series of workshops, speaker panels, and resources, and other events throughout the academic year. We're always a text away, so please feel free to contact us about what you would like to see this year. Over to Harini.
Hi guys, so WIF Academy is this year's first careers team event, and today we will be having course-specific exam prep sessions for law, management, and accounting and finance, economics, and an interdisciplinary course panel with third years and graduates from each field sharing their experiences with exams and the course overall. Now I would like to take you through the flow of events. So the first part of the event will be introducing our panelists, and then we will talk you through their experience of our panelists with their examinations, and then they will be telling you some amazing resources and tips to get you through this exam season. And then we will be asking some questions, and then we will open the floor for the live question and answer session. I would now like to introduce the panelists. So our first panelist for today is Shrenik Sirana. He's our third year accounting and finance student. He was the previous treasurer, and his interests include driving and sports, especially football and basketball. He intends to work in the banking industry, and as of now, he's uncertain as to whether he wants to work in UK or India. But he knows that in the long term, he wants to settle down in Mumbai. I would now like to hand over to Arzu to introduce the next panelists.
Moving on to our second panelist, we have Vaishali Goyal, and she graduated from Warwick in 2021 with a bachelor's in management with marketing and has experience mentoring on academics and job applications. She is now a cyber risk consultant at Deloitte, UK, and her focus is on cyber strategy, specifically where she conducts assessments on clients' critical IT systems. Her interests outside of work include painting, sketching, playing squash, and baking. She has a knack for marketing and is keen on exploring that career path in the future. Our next panelist is Shaurya Kohli, and he is a third-year management with digital innovation student. Having been in the executive teams of various societies, including Warwick Entrepreneurs, Kickstart, and Emerging Markets, he's developed a passion for technology. He will be working as a management consultant at Accenture in the future, and his interests include football, basketball, cricket, and F1. Over to Harni to introduce WBS examinations and host the specific set of questions for our panelists today.
Moving on from introductions, as Arzu said, we now have our set of curated questions. And before that, we would just like to ask our panelists what their experience with examinations was when they were in university or right now and they're in third years. So guys, would you like to answer? Would anyone like to go first?
I'll go. So many of you may not know that but my batch didn't have examinations in our first year. So we just gave exams in our second year. So basically my first examination in university was the one that accounted for 50% of my degree. So that was a bit of a pressure there when I did give my exams last year. And we also had online exams. So obviously it was a very different sort of scenario from what I've been used to. And I just said, okay, I don't have a choice here. It's not like I can crib about it or I can do anything about it. I just did what I always do. I made myself thorough with the modules and concepts, and I practiced as much as I could, prepare myself to the very best. And I just always try to finish my papers in time, and also leave time for uploading and just writing all my work in a document and converting it and then uploading it again. So overall, it was a good experience, but very different from what I've been used to.
Thanks. I don't mind going next.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I graduated last year, which means I started my uni life when the world was fairly normal. So my first year was offline exams, in-person exams. Second and third year, I gave online. And I think the 3 years have been like a learning curve, not just in the sense of academics, but also in the sense of coping with the different style of examination. So obviously the way you'd approach an in-person exam is very different to an online exam. And the way I prepared for that also changed. So first year I did a lot of, I wrote a lot of my notes on paper because I like, reading on the way to the exam or right before the exam, just those last minute tidbits that you like, that you like to read. Second year, I was still used to that mainstream way of writing my notes down and, reading online or in books. I learned that wasn't the most efficient way of studying when you're giving an exam online. So third year, I shifted to making notes on OneNote, no paper, all on OneNote, so I could quickly command F whatever I needed in the middle of the exam. So I think it's been a learning curve in terms of how to efficiently study for the mode of examination also.
Adding to that, I think my batch got lucky with 24-hour exams as well. So that gave us a lot of flexibility to just take our time and understand the question. But at the same time, as Vaishali said, have the notes in hand or on your laptop just to quickly find and make sure that you can get all the resources together when writing your answer. It definitely was a new experience, and some of you may be experiencing that for the first time this year. But what my advice would be, just don't be stressed or don't be too intimidated by the online exams, and treat it as a normal essay or normal tests or quizzes that you do normally during term.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Our panelists will now give you an overview of the resources and tips that they use during their time at university.
So obviously, sorry. Obviously there are lecture notes and seminar notes. What I usually tended to do was that I made my notes during the term. So as the lecture was going on, I should listen to whatever the lecturer was saying. I would jot down the slides as well, which I thought were important. And I would also make notes from what they said, you know. So because of that, I always had my notes in my notebook rather than having to view slides, which really did help me in the third term to just prepare and revise, because it was much faster that way. Plus, if I had any additional notes, I could just make a small little indent in that later on over there. And obviously, the best part about seminars is that they also give you additional questions in most modules. So I used to do all of them. And if I didn't really understand, I would ask my seminar tutors. I would ask, I would post my doubts on the forum, or I would ask my friends if they knew how to do all this or how to do these certain questions. And one thing I would recommend is doing text back questions. That's something most people don't know about, but text back questions are really important, especially for you second year A&F students. If you guys want to prepare well for your financial reporting 1 and 2 exams, you should definitely do text back questions. A lot of questioning comes from there, like the question style comes from there. So you might just find like a very similar question that you've already done come in the paper that's been taken from the text back questions.
I think next you should focus on essential readings. So I think those help you answer your seminar questions, and just help where you have modules which require cases to support your answer. You'll find those in there. Further readings, it depends. Now, if you have finished your lecture and seminar content, you've done your essential readings and you want to expand your knowledge, you're particularly inquisitive about something, or you haven't found a good example for some answer, some particular topic, definitely look into the further readings. But I mean, see how much time you have in hand. I'll tell you that practically. So if you have an exam tomorrow and you're still struggling with the lectures, do not focus on further readings. Just focus on finishing the lecture content. And another thing I can't stress enough on is the forum Q&A, because I learned that much later in my time at Warwick, that the entire batch posts questions on the forum Q&A, and sometimes they're questions that you haven't even thought of, which are actually quite helpful. And you might also notice that module leaders answer those questions in quite a bit of detail. Like I've had some modules, essay-based modules, where the module leader has literally broken down the question and written down his or her expectations very clearly over there. That really helps you. It gives you a good push, and it is quite helpful when you're framing your answer. So definitely look at that before any exam or essay.
Coming to the Warwick Library and past papers, these resources definitely help, especially for the essay-based modules, because let's say for when you're writing your answers, you might need to gather like academic resources and journal articles and stuff. And so if you just search the topic on the library website, you can find a bunch of resources and links to articles that you can read, and then base your answers on that, and then also cite that in your answers. So when it comes to, and it also gives you access to all the essential and further readings assigned by the module leaders. So it's a great way for you to learn more about a certain topic and, gather originality in your thoughts when you're writing down. And the more you know, the better it is, because it helps your flow of thought when writing. And then, of course, past papers So in my second year, I didn't really look at past papers, but now that I've seen the importance of past papers, and a lot of modules follow the same sort of structure and also similar types of questions. So it's definitely a good, if you have the time, obviously, look at past papers to understand what kind of questions are to be expected. And also, especially for the objective modules, such as accounting and finance modules, you can definitely use those papers as practice. So yeah, I definitely recommend that.
Thank you for sharing that, panelists. I'm sure that this is of great help to all of us. For the next part of the session, we've collected a few questions that we'd love for you to answer. Are you guys ready to start? Yeah, okay. So the first one is, what would be your advice for those students who have not covered all the content for their respective subjects at this point of time?
I would like to take that one. So obviously my first recommendation is going to be try to cover it up. But obviously if that's not possible, then you need to try to figure out what week's material will fetch you the maximum marks, like for example, if it's weeks 4 and 5 from which most of the questions come from in the paper, then you have to dedicate your time first to those weeks. And then once okay, this will get me 40% of the marks in the paper, you have done that, then you move on to everything that's over the minimum grade that you want. That's the way I would go. Another thing I would recommend is doing like some sort of trend analysis of the papers, view the past papers, see how the questions are coming, how they're framed, what weeks is it coming from, which topics are being asked more often. So one of the things I noticed in my financial reporting 1 and 2 papers was that in the section B, they give you 2 topics from which the question comes from. So every year it was alternating. So I just prepared myself very well for the alternate one. I also did for the other one, but the one that I felt like was going to come this year, I prepared myself better for that. And to my surprise, it was the one that came. So do these kind of things, understand what is, prioritize yourself in what you have to be doing first.
Adding to that, I definitely think that you need to understand your own strengths and weaknesses. If there are certain topics that you don't understand, you might want to focus on those topics and look at additional resources away from the Warwick ecosystem. So like YouTube videos or different articles that can really make you understand certain topics. And the hard topics, the sooner you get done with it, the more confident you'll be and the better notes you'll be able to make. And then that'll help you with your revision. So once that's out of the picture, then you can start focusing on the relatively easier topics within the module. And so that's a good approach to take when you haven't covered it all, because you make sure, as Shanik said, you cover all the paper heavy topics to make sure that you don't miss out on anything important. And that's a good approach you can take to sort of cover everything in a relatively shorter period of time.
Perfect.
If I may add to that, actually, instead of just blindly starting to watch lectures, if you're short on time and you've not covered the content, it's better to make a list of the topics that are there in that module. Like Shanik said, do a analysis of the past papers, see the trend, and mark down the most important topics and prioritize those. So start in that order and try to secure as many marks as you can, so at least you can pass the module.
Perfect. Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much. The next question is, how important are first year grades for applying for summer internships? Would a student have to submit their transcripts?
I don't mind taking that. So I think it depends on what firm you're applying to. In my experience, while I was filling out the application, they required me to put in an expected degree since I had not graduated. And to be honest, you can put anything there. You can put first class, upper second class. But at a later stage, if you do manage to secure the job. At a later stage, they could ask for the transcript. And I think in that case, it's better to at least be on track to achieving a first class or a upper second class. So I would say, I wouldn't say it's not important at all. I would say it's, yeah, you should definitely, even though it's not counted towards your degree, take it seriously.
Perfect. The next question is, how did you balance your time between extracurriculars and academics?
So during term time, I think a lot of us are busy with society work or, just other extracurricular activities. When it comes to balancing academics with that, I think it's definitely, at least what worked for me is to have like a plan and, schedule your tasks on a weekly basis so that you, even though you may not be able to complete the task you had in mind on one particular day, you still give yourself enough time to cover up on the following days. And, a lot of people place emphasis on just marks and stuff, but if you're applying for internships and graduate jobs, for example, there's more to you than just grades. So definitely don't be too academically oriented, but don't compromise that just for the sake of having fun or doing extracurricular activities. So when it comes to balancing it out, I just think that, make sure you focus on the tasks that really add value to you and actually give you enough time to make lecture notes during the week, to not fall too far behind during term time, because then you'll be in a stronger position when it comes to revising in term 3.
One thing I would just like to add to that is obviously what Shah said is extremely correct. You should plan ahead, figure out what dates will go in let's say your extracurricular activities or in your events that you're hosting, because if you're part of a society, and then just figure out when you can study either beforehand or after that. But many times it just so happens that you miss a week or two and then you cannot cover it up during the term. So what I used to do is I used to just leave it for term 3, and once I've finished both the terms, I will just in like March, or let's say when the spring vacation starts, I'll make a plan. Okay, I have to cover this up first, then I'll start my revision. So I should do all my covering up in the third term. That's something I found helpful.
Perfect. The next question, which is sort of unconventional, but I think it goes on in all of our minds, is would you say that group study is better, or would you say that individual study is better?
I can take that one. I think that depends. That's a highly subjective question, but you need to understand again how you work and what works effectively for you. So for me personally, I like to study individually, but after I cover the topics and understand it myself, I like to engage with my friends or the forums or the module-based WhatsApp groups we make. That really allows me to not only sharpen the knowledge I have and make sure that I have covered everything, but it also gives me access to what other people are thinking, and that may help you with understand something better or give you additional points when you're writing your essay-based questions, for example. So definitely that's up to you. If you work well in groups, then and if your friends do the same way, then it's highly beneficial that you're in an environment where everyone is working together, because that can motivate you. But at the same time, if you like your personal space and you like going at your own pace, then individual study would be for you. But then again, like if you like studying individually, I would definitely recommend still having arguments and debates and trying to learn more from your friends and forums. So definitely have a balanced approach when it comes to both those study methods.
Perfect. The next question is, what type of referencing should we use, and how detailed should it be in an exam scenario? For instance, how does it differ in an online exam and an offline exam?
I don't mind taking that. So I think it depends on the exam you're giving. If it's a very essay heavy exam, like a marketing exam or a business law exam, I think business law has its own requirements because you're referring to cases all the time. And I think they require you to be accurate about the case name and the year. In essays like marketing, I don't know what the structure will be for you guys, but if it's a timed exam, they're not too anal about how you're referencing it. But what I used to do, whenever I did remember a reference, I would just put the last name, like I would in text cite it in a Harvard reference format. So I would put the last name, comma, and the year in which the article or the resource was written. But yeah, if it's a timed condition, online or offline, they're not too fussy about it. Same goes for like B law, because I think you guys have B law in person, and I'm sure everyone must be a bit nervous about that. But yeah, don't feel like you have it harder than people who had it online, because they sort of scale down the marks also. The whole class performs lower on average, so they sort of scale down the marks also, and they see how the whole class is performed. So you don't have much to worry about. Just ensure that you know your cases well, and you know what years they've taken place in. Just as long as you can exhibit that knowledge, it should be okay.
Perfect. Would anyone like to add to that? Or should we move on to the next question? Okay. So the next question is, do you guys have any schedule making or time management tips? And how does a student cope up with modules that have closed deadlines or exam dates as compared to the others?
So I'll take that one. What I have always done since almost like 10th grade is I obviously have to first make a schedule for my exams. What I used to do is, that's it. This time I have a module called investment management. So I figured out, okay, how much time will it take for me to do 1 week's worth of investment management work? So I had a lecture in it. I had 2 pre-recordings, and I had a seminar. It took me roughly 3 hours to do that much amount of work. Like that's 1 week's worth of work, and I have 9 weeks. So okay, I know, like I'll take roughly 27 hours to do this module, and I spread it across the next 9 or 10 days, and I spent almost less than 3 hours a day on that module. Then I was spread over the next 10 days. That way I know, okay, this is half my day's work that's done, and then the next 10 days I'll also finish this module, and I also have 3 more hours left in the day that I have to work for. So then I figured out, okay, I have to maybe do an assignment that's due in 7 days. So I try to finish 500 words each day. If it's let's say 3,000 words. So by the end of the 6th day, I've done 3,000 words. And what I should do is, like, I set a goal for myself in the start of the day. Like I write in my diary. I say, okay, I have to do this, this, and this. It doesn't have to be in that order, but it should be done by the end of the day. Once one thing is done, I take it off, and that's just a way to keep myself in check and keep myself up to speed, whether I'm doing my work or not. And what I usually used to do was, I see how many hours do I have left before I have to sleep. If I have 10 hours left, I have to do 6 hours amount of work before that. Now I know I can only take a break or chill or do whatever I want other than my work for 4 hours. So that's how I used to accommodate myself.
Perfect. Does anyone want to add to that? Okay. So the next segment is the course specific questions. We're going to move on to that now. So the first course specific question is, how would you advise students to prepare for finance related modules? I know that both management and accounting and finance students have finance related modules, and this particular year they're all offline. So how would you advise a student to prepare for these exams?
So when you have finance as a module, what you have to do is, you have to be very thorough with the concepts. It's not about understanding what's written on slides or just mugging up, understanding how to get marks. It doesn't work like that in finance. You understand the concept behind it, behind the topic. You will understand what they're trying to say, and then you can use that in any way you want to. You can apply that everywhere in any question, in whatever form it comes. So what I used to do was I did all my lecture notes. Obviously, did all the seminar questions, because in finance paper usually there's a variety of different questions that can come. So I used to do every question that was there in the seminars, all additional questions, text back questions, past papers as well. So make yourself very thorough, have a lot of practice in finance, because that's the only way you'll know what to do when a certain question comes. Because let's say I've done a similar question before that's come in the paper, I know how to tackle that. So you have to do that. And another thing that helped me a lot was that whenever I had doubts, obviously you can ask your friends, you can ask the module leader, you can post in the forums. But what I like to do most was I should just go online and research that specific topic, because it was very convenient. First of all, it was quick. I got my doubts solved that moment. And I also got to learn a thing or two new, which I didn't know before that. So that's my advice for finance. Just practice as much as you can.
Perfect. So the next question is, which two subjects do you think require the maximum attention in first year, second year, and third year in your experience?
I can start with that. So I think it depends again what there are core modules that every course within WBS has to take. So in year one, obviously, like, you don't have much choice. But in year two, you have entrepreneurial mindset, and at least for management, and you have these core modules that are that you need to sort of pass and get a good grade in order to, like, move on, and that's placed that has more emphasis within your degree. But then again, as you move into year two and year three, you have to sort of choose your specialization if you want to specialize. And the way like whatever subjects require maximum attention depends on your choices. So for example, if you are pursuing a finance related sort of specialization, that you might want to, and then also you have essay based modules. And if you have experience if you're good with maths, for example, you don't need to focus too much on the finance related modules as much as you do if you're not thorough with essay based subjects. So it definitely depends on, if you have experience writing essays, then you're more confident approaching exams and approaching modules that have a similar structure. But then at the same time, you might want to focus your attention towards the more objective and mathematical based modules. And especially in management, you have a good variety and good balance of both. So that's why I definitely think if there's any sort of subject you're lacking in, you have to identify that and just focus your attention on that, because ultimately you want to get good grades in all modules, not just one or two. So that's what I would say.
From an A&F perspective, I would say that it's very important to focus on from the first year onwards, the finance modules first, and secondly, the intro to financial accounting. Since in your second year, they get built up in financial reporting 1 and 2, and also finance 1, and maybe finance 2 if you take that as an elective. And since these are core modules for A&F, you have to pass in them to progress to the next year. That's why I would say they are very, very important to focus on. And also, it also depends on the electives you take. For example, if you take issues in management accounting in your second year, then obviously you will have to pay more attention towards management accounting in your first year. So it just depends on the electives that you want to take in the next year and also in the third year. So like Shraddha said, it depends on the specialization you want to do, I guess. But in A&F, I would definitely say you should in your first year, at least, you will have to focus a lot on the financial accounting and financial markets part.
And also, it depends on the number of cats that module is worth. I think you guys use a different cat system now, but in my time we had 12 and 24 cats. And I specialized in marketing. So in second year, I hadn't decided on that yet, but I'd taken the core marketing module just to have my option open. And that was a 24 cat module. So it had double weightage, it spanned across 2 terms. And that definitely needed a little more attention because it was a lot more content, which was all being examined in one exam. So definitely look at your individual modules and what their weightage is.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. The next question is, what resources would you recommend for open book exams, and how do you be efficient with open book exams, and what do you need to have ready for these exams?
I don't mind taking that. So in terms of resources, they remain the same as what we covered earlier, because I personally believe in approaching an online exam the way I would approach an offline exam. It's still in a timed condition, and in the middle of an exam, you won't have time to study anything. So you need to go in as if you're in an in-person exam, but you need to be smart about how you study for it and how you have your resources prepared, your notes prepared, I mean. So I shifted from like making paper notes to having all my notes on my laptop, and I used OneNote. I don't know if anyone has used that before, but I used OneNote, and I used to download all the presentations in PDF format. Each lecture's presentation, I used to import it onto, there's a way you can import it onto OneNote. Excuse me. And you can make notes while listening to lectures. I used to make notes against that particular slide. So when I was revising, that would help me quickly like search for anything I wanted to read up again. And in the middle of the exam, right before the exam, I would go through those notes and prepare a more condensed sheet, which had like all the important topics and maybe one or two bullet points under those, just as reminders in case, I can't remember that in the middle of the exam, or any particular, a list of examples as well. So at the end of each topic, I would create another note which had just a list of topic-wise examples that I could use in my responses. Again, mine were very essay-based questions, essay-based modules. So yeah, I think definitely making online notes is very smart way to go about giving online exams, and that it helped me a lot, because I couldn't possibly, in second year I was struggling with flipping through like pages and pages of notes and trying to find where I'd written stuff. That's what I was used to doing in first year and in school throughout, because I never was able to carry those papers in the middle of the exam. So yeah, does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, sure, I don't mind. I think when writing online exams, especially for essay-based modules, it's sort of a hack to have the resources open, not only your lecture and seminar notes, but also have like, the lecture slides open on Google, just so you can, while writing, you can sort of refer to them. And it's a sort of a quick hack for to get the resources, or if something's missing in your notes, and sometimes you don't understand what you've written in your notes, and that's quite common. So it might be a good way for you to check with the lecture slides. And of course, because they place more emphasis on the references when writing online exams, which is sort of fixed, it's good to have those resources open as well, so you can quickly cite that and make sure that the citations are also correct while writing. So I think having all three, sort of your own notes, your lecture slides, and some sort of articles that you've read and you think are applicable to the question, you should have that open, because even at times when when you're in the flow of writing, sometimes you face like a block where you just can't proceed. And sometimes you just need to add those little details to show that, you've gone the extra mile in your answers. And that really can affect your marks in a positive way. So definitely that could give you the edge. So you can keep that in mind as well.
And I think definitely keep it open. That's obviously the smart thing to do, but definitely don't walk in thinking that you will have enough time to Google it or to go through each of those resources that are open. definitely don't walk in with that approach. Just have it open in case something slips your mind, some spelling skips your mind, or you forget the year or something like that. But don't bank on having enough time to actually read that resource and then formulate your words. That's not going to happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is something that is really I'm really concerned about personally. How do we structure answers to essay-based questions?
I can take that. So when it comes to essay-based questions, a lot of sort of priority needs to be on your understanding of the question itself. So the way it works is that you can start by identifying the keywords of the question and underline it, or whether if you don't have, or make like a mental check if you're running short of time. On top of that, you will have to, just quickly think about what concepts you can use. And what's worked for me since high school is that you can use those five minutes to, 5 to 7 minutes of just planning out your essay, starting with the introduction, and that gives you time to think about your main points and allows you to sort of evaluate the question as you go. So you start with, obviously the basic structure would be introduction. Then you have, if it's like a pro and con type question, then you could start with advantages, then disadvantages, then sort of come to your conclusion or future outlook. But then you might also want to merge it, or you might want to contrast different opinions in your main body. So what has worked for me, and what feedback I've received from various module leaders, is that in your introduction, it's good to sort of list out what the essay is going to be, what the essay aims to do, and what the overall argument you're making is. Even if you don't know it, you can just write it, or you can write it at the end. So that's something that you should definitely keep in mind in the introduction. And then also, if any definitions or key terms that you're using, it's good to establish that in your introduction, because it allows any reader to sort of understand the concepts before you move on to the main analysis thing. And then you start with your arguments. So I think a structured based approach is definitely important, because it allows you to gather your thoughts more effectively, but also adds more flow to your essay and makes it easier for the examiner who's reading it to understand it as you go. And then also in your conclusion, then when you're ending it, you can talk about you can just sort of talk about the limitations of your approach and what you would do differently and how that's impacted your overall analysis. But then also a good thing to do, and to show that you actually understand the topic, is to give some sort of future outlook. So even if it's not taught, you have to make sure that throughout your essay you give like originality in your thoughts. You have to use your references very carefully, but also not have like a list of references after every sentence. You have to sort of combine it and make sure it flows together with your own thoughts. And because you're in an exam environment, they don't expect you to know all the resources and reference it properly. It's more important on your understanding of the question. So you have to make sure that you understand the question before you actually just, okay, if it's, for example, in year 2, year 3, for example, there's this module called SIM, or critical issues in management. And rather than listing out the theories and frameworks you're using and just defining it and sort of just listing out everything that's taught to you in lectures, it's more important it's more important that you showcase your understanding of the theories and apply it to your answers very well. And sort of, even if you're not including all of the information taught in the lecture, try to do as much, but also make sure that you don't include too much, that your essay isn't as detailed as it should be. So yeah, that's the structure and approach I would take when it comes to these questions.
Also, to like Shoya said, take 2-3 minutes to structure your response before you start writing it. So you make a basic skeleton that, okay, I'll have an intro, I'll have 3 body paragraphs, and then I'll have a conclusion. but within those body paragraphs as well, I normally use like the P format of structuring paragraphs. So that's point, evidence, and explanation, or analysis. And basically, after your intro, every body paragraph you make, you start with making your point. I'll just take a marketing case. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with heuristic cues, but they're basically something that that we encounter, which leads us to eventually buying something in a shop, for example. So you start with your point that, okay, heuristic cues are used in supermarkets to attract customers, whatever, just an example. Then your evidence would be a case where this has happened. So let's say H&M, something about H&M, you use H&M as an example, and then your explanation / analysis would be how this plays on customers, and then you would give a counter argument as well. So you have your analysis done there, and I think that really beautifully structures your thought without too much effort. So when you're making your skeleton in your body paragraphs, just jot down like a few words that help you think in that direction when you're actually writing down the whole essay.
And one more thing I'd like to add, make sure that you have those sort of links back to the question, and because that allows you to, keep track of what you're writing and make sure it all makes sense. But then also, like, having those mini conclusions can be a good way for you to understand and sort of narrow down to a conclusion, and make sure that you've covered enough points on both sides of the critical evaluation that you need to do. And when it comes to the assessment criteria, it's very similar to any other essays you've written. So yeah, just follow that same approach. And obviously in an exam mindset, the time is going faster, so you need to be quicker. So just keep that all in mind and when you're writing such answers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is, are seminar questions really worth it? Or do you think we should focus more on lectures? Because sometimes seminar questions are much easier than what actually comes in the exam.
I think the response is in the question. So definitely focus more on lecture notes. That goes without saying. Just watch all the lectures. That's what's personally helped me. I think they cover everything from A to Z that's in the syllabus in the lecture. So I watched in my third year more specifically, because those were my main exams, most important, and I was kind of working around my study style to adjust to the mode of examination. I watched all the lectures for all the modules from lecture 1 to lecture 10. I made notes on that. Then I faced the seminar questions. Before watching the lectures, what you can do is maybe go through the seminar question sheet or something that they provide to you, right? So you go through that just to see what is going to be there in that lecture. So you get an idea, but don't try to solve it before that. So go watch all the lectures, then try to solve the seminar questions, because that helps you apply the knowledge you have taken in. I mean, it shouldn't be that you're blankly watching the lecture. And I think after that, you go on to the essential readings if you have time.
On a contrary note, I would say that I found seminars to be more helpful for me personally, because a lot of material in the lectures is very theoretical. I mean, I did understand it, but not to the fullest extent as to how to apply it. So when I did do the seminars and I saw questions and I saw, okay, this is how it's going to be applied to this question, I understood that okay, this is the actual application of the theory that I've just been taught, and this is how they expect me to answer as well. So you know how they give you seminar answers, so I always go through them, because for the objective questions like the numericals, you get a fair idea of the way you should answer, because it's not about just writing the numbers down. You also have to explain your thinking behind using these formulas, or maybe using your thinking behind deriving this from that. So you have to mention all of those things down as well as the numericals. And for the subjective questions, for the theory based questions, I understood that this is that it depends on the question. Some questions are very straightforward, so you can write a straightforward answer. So the discussed questions are something that you need to like show us weigh the pros and cons, to for and against arguments, and it helps you understand the structure that they are expecting from a student, from you guys in the exams. So that's why I found seminar work to be very, very helpful.
Yeah, I think you definitely need to do it eventually. So it's up to you whether you do it before or after the lectures. But I think I think Shenik, you're also talking from like more of an ANF perspective, right? So yeah, that makes sense. For me, it was more questions that needed subjective responses, and I think watching the lecture gave me more of an idea of how the lecturer was thinking. So that helped me frame my thoughts or get more creative with it, basically, which was required for my degree.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I agree with the fact that you should watch lectures definitely, and they are a bit more important. But all I'm saying is you shouldn't neglect the seminar work. Obviously, watch the lectures first. Others you cannot do the seminar work, to be honest. So watch all the lectures, the pre-recordings as well. Some people tend to skip the pre-recordings for some reason. I don't know why, but I think they are very, very important, just as important as the live lectures itself.
Yeah, agreed. I think lecturers treat pre-recording as a part of the syllabus. So sometimes they'll come into the lecture and say that, okay, now we're going to carry forward from this topic, which we covered in the pre-recording. So you guys, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. And if you haven't done that, you're not going to be able to build up on what they have said in the lecture, and you might have only watched the lecture.
And yeah, just because seminar questions are easier, sometimes it's the easy questions where you can mess up, especially from an accounting and finance perspective. So it's very important for you to use that as a stepping stone. And if you can crack the seminar questions, because they're sort of progressive. So as you progress from one question to the next, it gets harder. But even if it's not as hard for you, then it allows you to sort of revise your concepts, and also then start looking for similar questions from other resources.
All right. Thank you for answering our questions, our course-specific questions, to everyone, Shrenik, Vaishali, and Shaurya. Very insightful. I'm sure people will be able to take your valuable insight and implement it in their management while they study. So the advice was super helpful. So now we would like to open the stage to our audience for our live Q&A session. I request that everyone who has sent questions using the chat feature turn on their microphone when called out to directly to ask that question to our panelists. You can also raise your hand if that's more convenient, and we'll let you ask our panelists directly.
Oh, can I ask a question, please? I can't find the hand option here.
Oh yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
So since I'm not quite sure if this was asked already, but since module selection is around the corner, which is on the 4th of May, what's your guys' advice in order to choose as to what modules we should actually go for? Like, because it's because we don't really know what the content really is, even though we have like a sort of an overview. So what's the best way to decide as to what suits you the best and what suits what you actually want to do?
So when I go about module selection, the first thing I always do is ask my seniors. That's the first way to go about, I believe, because they have the experience of going through the module. They know the good things about it, the bad things, the do's and the don'ts. And they also know which modules I should avoid from their experience. Maybe they have taken a module which is not what it seems like as the overview, or maybe their friends have a module that is not something that might be worthwhile my time or my efforts. So that's something I do first. Secondly, I would also look at the assessments of the module, because it's sometimes it's important to know that you're not overburdening yourself during the exam time, so that maybe you can take 1 or 2 essay-based modules, like assignment-based modules, to reduce your exam stress in the third term. And but mostly what I like to look at is the content, as in like the knowledge that I'll be getting from that specific module. I try to take things that are different, that are maybe diverse, that I'm not done already. Like especially in this year as well, there have been some modules which I could have taken, which would have been much easier from the modules I currently have, because they would have been maybe like similar to the modules I've done in my second year, and they have been easier. But I chose to take the more difficult modules, because I thought that, okay, if I'm not learning something new, then what's the point of studying a module? What's the point of me choosing that specific module? So definitely see what you can learn from it. See the assessment criteria. See I think in most of the modules they also give you a list of the syllabus that they'll be teaching. So go through that, research online a bit, ask your seniors. Maybe you can even ask people from different courses, like if they have some sort of knowledge. For example, we have some in WBS, we also have econ based modules. Economic students have WBS based modules, so you can ask them as well how their experience has been with the module.
Adding to that, I think a lot of modules also have the previous average grades that people got. So when you're looking at modules to select, you can sort of get an overview of how people perform, how difficult it is, and that might shape your sort of decision. And also especially for management, when you're looking at specialization, one thing that I learned is that you need to fulfill 90 CATs to be eligible for a specialization. So for example, I am specializing in digital innovation, and I didn't take business analytics in my first year. And because of that, I had to take a 30 CATs module this year. So, if you know what you're specializing in, definitely, for example, if you're specializing in marketing and you haven't taken marketing based modules in year 1, term 2, and because of that, you need to start looking at marketing related modules. So you might not have the freedom of not selecting that, because you won't meet the criteria, won't meet the credit criteria otherwise. So look at the specialization as well. Look at what you want to do. Look at how far you are off from the 90 CATs that you require for specialization. And of course, at the end of the day, it depends on your own, what you want to study. So even if you don't graduate with a specialization, that's not the end of the world, or it's not a required thing. So if you want to learn more across several different areas, go ahead and do that. It's ultimately your own choice and what you prefer. So yeah, that's what I would say as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shrenik and Shaurya, and thank you, Jay, for the question. We have a few more in the chat that have just popped up. So Anushka is asking, in terms of modules, if you'd like to go into consulting, are there any specific modules that would be recommended?
I can take that to begin. I think consulting, when you look at consulting, you have to look at it as an industry and how, the work that is done. So when you look at, there are a few modules that you can choose, like project management or managing strategy in the digital era, or, these strategy related, like problem solving based modules that'll help you gain more knowledge about how, businesses conduct themselves and how they shape their strategy and overall operations. That'll give you a good insight and allow you to use that as a foundation for your interviews as well. For example, you can say that studying project management at university allowed me to understand how businesses in today's digital era are working, and that gives you the foundation. But then again, when you look at consulting, you look at consulting is a very team-based approach. So you need to, you can select modules that have group presentations, because that that gets you familiar with working with multicultural individuals, or however fancy you want to make it sound in your interviews, and just get an insight into how it's like working in the consulting world. And so there aren't any specific modules that you necessarily need to take, because ultimately your degree and your modules don't influence whether you can get into the consulting industry or not. But definitely there are a few modules that can help you with your own knowledge. So yeah, that's what I would say.
And to add to that, I think in the business school, we really focus on application. So we do a lot of case analysis and examples. I think I built my soft skills from there, and not just that. I mean, even in my interviews, I think all the knowledge that I picked up from there is what I really ended up using. So I don't think doing any particular modules would give you an upper hand. It's just that you need to make the most of, select what you like, select the modules based on what you like, and pick the most, pick the soft skills out of that and use that for your interviews. And again, like Shaurya said, for consulting, doesn't matter what degree you've done. So you don't need to be too worried about that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Shaurya and Vaishali. Another question that we have from Arav is, how much would you expect to write for questions that are worth about 50 marks?
So I personally haven't had the opportunity to write an answer worth 50 marks, but from my understanding, I would say that it depends on the overall overall marks of the paper. So if it's like 100, if like section B is worth 50 marks and it's just one question, and section A is broken down into different parts where with relatively smaller marks per question, then I would say just get those get the smaller questions out of the way, so that you have enough time to just write as much as you possibly can for the 50 marks. But at the same time, just keep what I said about the criteria and the structure in mind when writing it, because sometimes when you start writing too much, you sort of lose your flow of thought. So just because it's 50 marks doesn't mean you have to write like 3 or 4 pages. It's the content that you write more. Obviously, it's not like you write 1 page, because 1 page is not enough for 50 marks, I would assume. But then don't focus all your exam time on just this one question.
It's definitely quality over quantity. I think if you've studied well and you know what the questions ask really is what they're looking for, and you structure your answer well, the flow will come automatically and you'll automatically go over a page. I mean, it's not about how many pages you're writing. That's not what they're looking for.
Yep, that's perfect. If we have any last questions, I'd request our audience put that in the chat right away or raise their hand. Yep, Vanshika, you can unmute yourself and then ask our panelists your question.
Yeah, hi. Actually, I had this one question because I'm used to last minute study, but it doesn't work with so much content in university. So I try taking like detailed lecture notes, but right now before the exam, I feel like I have to watch most of it again to understand it because I've forgotten almost everything. How to tackle that? Like, I don't know what's wrong with the lecture notes, and also like there's a second question. Should we take note of essential readings or just read it through? Because apart from the essay-based exam, it doesn't seem useful. Like in accounting, for example, the accounting and financial module.
Vanshika, I can't hear you very clearly. Sorry. Can't understand what you're trying to say.
Can I just type the question? I think my net is bad. Can I just type the question in the chat box?
Yeah.
I think I was able to catch what she was saying. Her first question was that despite her taking a lot of detailed lecture notes throughout the term, right now when it comes to revision, she feels like she needs to kind of go back to the lectures anyway because those notes aren't like, making too much sense since she's forgotten a little bit of content. So she's saying, what is the strategy that you guys would suggest using there? How to like avoid redoing all that labor again? And then her second question was that with regards to essential reading, she doesn't find it very useful with finance related modules. And I think Vanshika's in her first year. So should she, and she only thinks they're applicable to essay-based modules. So what is your take on that?
So I think that firstly, you need to understand what's lacking in your notes if you feel like they're not very useful. So first try to learn that from this experience so that next time you do take notes, the same mistake doesn't happen again. Secondly, to avoid this similar kind of labor, I think maybe what you can do is while you're going through your notes, also have the lecture slides open. If not, I'm not saying the video, just the lecture slides. So it saves time that way to at least go through the lecture, and you don't have to listen to a 1 hour lecture. You can just quickly read through the slides. And if you get stuck on some specific part, you can just see the video for that specific part. Otherwise, I think usually the lecture slides are very self-explanatory. And also, I think you're right. Like I never did the essential or further readings for finance and accounting based modules because I never found them that useful. If there were certain additional questions that there were, I used to attempt them, but otherwise the readings, I don't think that they're useful. They might be useful for just one part of the papers. I think the lengthy essay based question that comes in the papers, in the accounting papers and the finance papers. So for that, maybe it could be useful, but I think your lecture notes has plenty of material for that to be tackled. And I think you should just try to practice questions more often so that you don't feel like you have forgotten your material from before.
And to add to that, so if you are in a position where you have all the notes, but you've forgotten it, I think you're in a relatively great position because at least you've done that work. So even if to revise, you can just watch the video on 1.5 speed or whatever, just to sort of quickly brush it through because you have the time to do that. So definitely, and then you can sort of correlate your notes with what's being taught in the lecture. And then when it comes to the second part of your question, which was how important are essential readings and whether you need to take notes, for essay-based questions, they can be quite important because they give you more information and it's easier for you to understand. And sometimes the lecture can't cover all the material. So it's good to sort of go through the essential reading for your own understanding. And if you feel like there's something important that can help you when writing your answers, you can take note of that, but you don't really need to proactively take notes of the readings.
Also, I think you're stressing a little bit over the amount of the content in the lectures. So what helped me, I made lecture notes prior to my exams for all my modules. And I face a similar issue. If I prepare too much, I forget the content right before the exam and I feel like I need to brush through everything again. But it's really about just skimming through your notes, having your lecture slides open side by side and just really quickly skimming through them, and that'll jog your memory faster than you are thinking right now. I think just give it a start and you'll realize that it goes much faster when you're just skimming through stuff, turning pages. You'll automatically be reminded of what was said in the lecture. And to, further your knowledge and to strengthen your knowledge or strengthen your answers, as you're going through those notes, simultaneously keep either Googling for cases, examples, or if you already have a bank of examples, simultaneously apply that theory or topic or whatever it is to that case and try to analyze it in your head. So you will get the theory as well as the application. I think you're, like Shaurya said, you're in a relatively better position than most people. And instead of worrying about just refreshing your memory about lecture notes, you can focus on the next step and how you can take advantage of the fact that you already have the lecture notes ready.
Thank you so much. I'm really conscious on time, but we do have one question. So if any of our panelists could really briefly run us through this. Mike is asking, how do you stay motivated during the exam period?
Uh, it's tough. It's tough. But ultimately, you have to remind yourself why you're here in this university, I guess, and also the fact that once you're done with this, you have a guilt-free vacation. That's my biggest motivator. That once I'm done with my exams, I can do whatever I want to for the next 2 months. And I guess maybe a good way to find motivation is to be around people who like to study, who indulge you in studying as well. Just surround yourself with positive energy, and you will find good motivation to study as well. Just if, like, for example, if I don't study one day, if I don't feel like studying, if I'm just lazing around, I'm wasting time. Like, my friends will come and they will like, yo, just start working up. Just start working properly. Stop this lazy attitude. And if I have some doubts, if I'm stuck, if I'm feeling low, they always like help me through that and motivate me, and they always are there for me. So surround yourself with good people. Take breaks every now and then, obviously, and also like just keep your mind fresh, have a good night's sleep, and just if you just try to reduce your stress, your motivation will automatically go up. That's what I found to be
Yeah,
working for me.
a great long-term, like overarching motivation strategy. Definitely remind yourself that you have a really long summer break after your exams end, but sometimes on some days you feel like you can't study anymore, you're just exhausted, tired. So for that, I set like a reward strategy system for myself, where every day I'd be like, okay, if I finish my target for the day, I'll dedicate 1 hour in the evening to whatever I like, listening to music, watching some TV show, going to play some sport, or ordering some good food. It's just those little things. Don't do it till you've met your target, and that'll keep you motivated for the time being at least. Just take one day at a time, and remember the overall motivation of chilling after your exams are over.
No, honestly, the reward system does work. Like every day, since a few days, I've started doing this thing where if I once I finish all my targets for the day, I hit my targets by like 11 or 11:30. Then I allow myself to watch a movie in the night that I just want to, and just chill for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then I just go to sleep. So that, I think that really genuinely works if you stick to it, though.
Yeah, because I think when you're demotivated, you're not looking forward to anything. So if you set something to look forward to, you automatically are motivated to finish your task.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fantastic advice. I definitely agree. You need to surround yourself with a productive and supportive ecosystem. So coming to the end, I would like to thank Shrenik, Vaishali, and Shaurya for joining us today. And a huge thank you to our coordinator team and the entire WIF team for making our first event of this year possible. To the attendees, thank you everyone for coming today and popping those fantastic questions in our chat. And we hope that you feel more prepared for exams after our session. Please feel free to reach out to our speakers via LinkedIn as well. And we do have our QR codes to our various social media platforms put up on the screen right now if you'd like to connect with the careers team. And as the current careers team, we are looking forward to having more successful events in the future and would love for all of you to reach out to us with any feedback and suggestions. Again, thank you so much for everyone joining in today.
Thanks, everyone, and feel free to connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, and if you have any more exam questions, career questions, happy to answer.